Space Tartarus Station is the center of international trade and a haven for numerous criminal gangs. The station is an independent city located in Sector 2.0, run by a block of traders. The streets of the station are run by three large organizations: the Sappers, the Moles, and the Crypto Thieves. Each organization has a similar hierarchy, principles, and rules, but fundamentally different in their activities. The Sappers are engaged in fraud and theft, while the main income of the Moles is contract killing. Crypto thieves sell physical force, a kind of mercenary. There are also smaller gangs: Token, Emission, Swap, FOMO, Space Punks, etc. The head of the Space Punks gang is Hollow, but before that, Hollow was Weskel's right-hand man, the head of the Sappers gang. Hollow learned from Weskel, defended him, and was always on his side. That's how he was able to accumulate enough money and make a name for himself to start his own gang. By then, he had Ripley and Bo with him. Weskel was happy to let his apprentice go to start his own gang, the Space Punks. Weskel even gave his apprentice a small area of Sappers territory. It all started out very well. Hollow opened his own club and named it P2E. Right after that, he managed to convince Torin, the gunman, to join the gang. And soon other gang members showed up. Together, they began to engage in theft, piracy, and collecting dirt. In a short period of time, they managed not only to get stronger, but also to instill fear in other gangs. But it wasn't long before their luck ran out. Committing another heist, the gang got caught by the authorities and were condemned to death. However, thanks to Weskel's influence, Hollow and his comrades managed to escape punishment. The head of the Sappers paid a huge sum of money to the merchant block, and now the Space Punks gang had to repay their debt. Weskel treated them pretty decently. He took the club and the territory for himself. The Space Punks joined the Sappers and now had to complete a mission to pay their debt and possibly get their club back. After a successful negotiation, Hollow and his comrades returned to the club. Each member of the gang immediately went about their business. Ripley went up to her room to shower. Torin grabbed a few bottles of hard liquor and sat down at the gaming table, joined by Bo. Pablo took up the ledger to check today's income. He played the role of engineer on the team and had a particular passion for numbers. He estimated that in 10 years the profits from the P2E club could cover the Sappers' debt. But that was too long a stretch. He glanced sadly at the sign above the bar. It used to have a big glossy space helmet, but now there was a sign with a picture of a dirty miner on it. Hollow went to his office, which now belonged to Weskel, who had completely changed the interior. Even though Weskel had his own bar, the Metaverse, he preferred to sit in the P2E club to build his tabletop spaceships. That's exactly what Hollow caught him doing. Ah, back? Weskel threw a nonchalant look at Hollow. It's done. I think the Milky Rogues won't be bothering us for a long time, Hollow replied. You think, or do you know? The head of the Sappers dipped a tool in glue and carefully applied it to the right part of the ship. I know. We took their ship, Hollow replied. In that case, the deed really is done. Hollow smiled and spoke. Is there anything else? There is. Weskel bent down and took out a sheet. Do you remember that crown you stole a week ago? I remember. That was the perfect robbery. Did something go wrong? You'll have to steal it again, Weskel let out a chuckle. Steal the loot? You could say that. How much? Hollow asked immediately. You'll get 1,000,000 space credits, each. Hollow looked calmly at Weskel's sinister grin. He was well aware that if the team was offered 7 million credits, the reward itself implied 10 times that. This was his chance, and Hollow was not going to miss it. I need more details. The customer assured me that this crown was a great danger to the star system. Of course, I, as a decent human being, cannot allow the crown to fall into the wrong hands, so we must steal it back. How much time do we have? 3 days, no more. Hollow caught a touch of panic in Weskel's voice. Where do we look for the crown? Do we have any information on the previous holder? Not much. So we have to figure out who this man is, where to find him, steal the crown, and return to you? All that in 3 days? Exactly. Weskel clapped his hands. No, Hollow replied. What do you mean, no? Need I remind you how much you owe me? The head of the sappers rose from his chair. Need I remind you how many jobs we've done for you? You've been paying me back, Weskel said, losing his temper. Don't you think you've subtracted too much? Hollow twitched his upper lip dismissively. He knew his teacher well, and he knew that he was now completely dependent on space punks. You have to make the most of this situation. Ungrateful! Don't you think you and your friends would be rotting in your grave if it weren't for me? And don't you think that if I walked out of the office now, you would definitely not be able to complete this assignment and get tens of millions of credits? Hollow took a step back toward the door. Weskel was silent. One more step, then I'll grab the doorknob, and you won't be able to stop me from leaving, Hollow thought. He turned and took a step toward the door. Weskel remained silent. The head of the space punks grabbed the doorknob and was ready to open it, as suddenly the voice of desperation can be heard. Wait! Okay, Hollow, what do you want? The club. You're out of your mind! You've got a duty! Weskel opened his eyes wide. Debt? Hollow turned and raised his eyebrows. In recent months, he had begun to think more often that perhaps Weskel himself was to blame for their failure. Someone had clearly set them up, but there was no proof. Weskel looked at Hollow for a long time. The two were literally staring each other down. Time was on the side of the space punks, and the head of the sappers was well aware of that. Every minute counted. All right, I'll reduce your debt to 1 million credits, Weskel finally spoke. No, you'll give us back the club and forget about the debt, suggested Hollow quietly. Have you lost your wits? No, but you are wasting your time, Hollow countered. Weskel looked at the clock on the wall. The clock was ticking. He had received his order 3 hours ago. He ought not to have forgotten that other gangs might have got the job, and they might be well on their way to picking up the pieces. Weskel took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and spoke. Okay, fine, Hollow replied. But on one condition, Weskel said, hoping to reinforce his authority. Well, yeah, what without that? Let me guess. If we don't complete the mission on time, you double our debt. If you don't complete the mission on time, your debt doubles, Weskel muttered. Hollow looked at him with a hint of contempt in his eyes, but it was his only chance. Done. The seal is set, the head of the sappers began. It cannot be broken, the head of the space punks finished. It was a peculiar expression by which a pirate honor treaty was established. It was popularly said that he who uttered these words and failed to keep them was doomed to 13 years of misfortune. Before leaving the office, Hollow asked, Is there anything else? Where did the previous customer usually go? Or where did he go? Do you at least know what he looked like? I know for a fact that he frequented the White List brothel. You know I like to keep an eye on my customers. A round face, black hair, and bushy eyebrows. And he's also fat, and he's a man. Weskel tried to remember something else, but gave up no new information. That's enough. Hollow walked out of the office with these words. Ripley was already standing in front of the door, as always, with her eyes closed and trying to listen to their conversation. As soon as the door opened, the girl immediately pretended to look at her nails. Nevertheless, she was unable to contain her excitement. He agreed, didn't he? I heard what you proposed to him. Didn't your parents teach you, Ripley, that eavesdropping is no good? Hollow stepped forward. They did, and you taught me to listen to everything I could hear, she hurried after the head. So he agreed? Bo, Torrin, Pablo, Kirby, Doc, shouted Ripley. Pablo immediately left the revenue book and walked over to Hollow. Torrin finished his second bottle and staggered drunkenly after Pablo's bifurcated silhouette. We have a new mission, said Hollow. What is it this time? Robbery? A holdup? Extortion? Dr. Smitty began to go over his fingers. No, this time it's more complicated than that, Hollow answered. What are we supposed to do? Torrin hiccuped. Get our club back.